Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're taking massive amounts of child psychology research and translating it into actual, actionable insights for your family. If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by the endless, and let's face it, often totally conflicting advice on how to raise resilient, happy kids, you are in the exact right place. We're going to cut right through all that noise today. Okay, let's just get real for a second and dive into a core anxiety that almost every single parent, caregiver, or educator faces at some point. Do you ever worry you're ruining them by letting them have that extra cookie? Or maybe, on the flip side, pushing them away by being way too rigid about bedtime? It's literally a constant tightrope walk. But thankfully, science actually has a map to help us find our balance. We've got a lot of fascinating psychological ground to cover today, so here's our quick roadmap. First, we'll hit the 4 parenting styles. Second, finding that authoritative sweet spot. Third, real-world parenting scripts. Fourth, the power of routines. And fifth, those all-important long-term behavioral outcomes.
Now, what I absolutely love about this topic is the sheer weight of the scientific data backing it up. We aren't just guessing here, guys. The insights we're pulling from today come straight out of systematic reviews published in heavy hitters like the Premier Journal of Social Science, the International Journal of Indian Psychology, and major developmental studies. This is evidence-based parenting at its absolute finest.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the 4 parenting styles, based on Diana Baumrind's famous framework. Way back in the 1960s, Diana Baumrind categorized how we interact with our kids by mapping 4 main styles across the spectrum. Basically, you've got 2 axes: how responsive you are to your child's emotional needs, so your warmth, and how demanding you are regarding their behavior, your control. Seeing these mapped out is super helpful because it lets us visualize exactly where we might default when we're stressed out. Let's break these down real quick.
First up, we've got the authoritarian style. These parents are high on control but low on warmth. It's an overly firm approach, all about strict rules and the classic "because I said so" mentality. And sure, while you might get immediate obedience, the research links this approach to increased rebelliousness, lower self-esteem, and even higher physical aggression as the child grows. It's all the control without that vital emotional connection.
Then, totally flipping the script, we have permissive parenting. This approach ranks super high on warmth but low on control. These parents have amazing intentions, right? They really want to be their child's friend. But because they lack consistent structure and clear boundaries, the data shows these kids unfortunately end up really struggling with self-discipline, conflict resolution, and respecting authority later in life.
The most negative type, however, is neglectful parenting. This is a double absence: low demand and low response. Parents here are either emotionally detached or just completely uninvolved in the child's life. Studies consistently show this style correlates with severe adverse outcomes, profound emotional distress, and major social difficulties across the board.
Moving right along to Section 2, the authoritative sweet spot: how to be kind and firm at the exact same time. So this is what we call the Goldilocks zone of parenting, authoritative parenting. This is that magical sweet spot where you are both kind and firm simultaneously. You're highly responsive to your kid's emotional state, meaning you empathize and validate their feelings, but you also hold the line with high expectations and healthy boundaries. It's all about teaching rather than punishing. And when we look at the psychology behind it, we see exactly why this works so incredibly well. By validating emotions through empathy, a child's brain literally calms down. By upholding discipline as a tool to teach rather than inflict pain, kids learn vital internal self-control. It invites them to use their voice and choice. And the most fascinating part? The research shows this efficacy holds true across entirely different cultures and socioeconomic statuses. It universally equips kids with lifelong problem-solving skills.
Which brings us perfectly into Section 3, real-world parenting scripts. Let's turn this theory into actual practice.
Because, theory sounds great until the dinner's burning and your toddler is having a massive meltdown. So how do we actually sound authoritative in the moment? Let's use some contrast here. When a child melts down, our knee-jerk authoritarian instinct is usually to just command, "Stop crying, quit whining." But authoritative parenting swaps out those demands for questions. Instead, try, "It's okay to feel mad. How can you calm your body?" You validate the emotion, but you immediately prompt them toward independent emotional regulation.
Oh, and here is another incredibly common battleground: screen time. Instead of barking out, "Tablet time is over, turn it off," try asking, "The timer just went off. What was our agreement about the tablet?" Notice how that asking approach doesn't ask if they want to turn it off, because that would be permissive, right? Instead, it empowers them to enforce the pre-established boundary all by themselves. Listen, if you only take one single tool away from this entire explainer, please let it be the 1-2 no-yes ratio. This simple 3-step formula is an absolute game changer. First, you hold your firm boundary, the no. I hear you want another cookie, but there was only one with lunch. But then, you immediately soften that blow with empathy and 2 acceptable choices. It's okay to feel disappointed. Would you like yogurt, or would you like some apples? You aren't caving to the cookie demand, but you're giving them back a sense of autonomy by letting them choose what happens next.
All right, Section 4, the power of routines, or how we build predictability.
Look, we can't negotiate our way out of every single behavioral issue. Sometimes we need the environment to do the heavy lifting for us, and routines do exactly that. Young kids are just trying to figure out how the world works, and a lack of predictability causes them immense anxiety, which almost always manifests as bad behavior. By establishing a predictable rhythm, you naturally create a safe environment, reduce that behavioral resistance, and ease those really tough transitions, like leaving the park or going to bed.
And building in these routines doesn't have to be complicated at all. We're talking super simple things here. A quick morning check-in to talk about feelings, or singing the exact same cleanup song every single time you tidy up. It signals crystal clear expectations. When kids know exactly what comes next, they feel safe, and when they feel safe, they are far more likely to cooperate with you.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 5, long-term behavioral outcomes. What does the data actually say about their development?
So, what kind of adults are we actually building with these different styles? While the research is glaringly clear on the long-term effects of authoritarianism, harsh methods literally backfire. Instead of creating perfectly compliant children, physical discipline and strict fear-based control actually increase the likelihood of aggressive behavior. These kids are at a higher risk of bullying their peers, and ironically enough, they become way less likely to comply with rules as they grow older.
But in sharp contrast, the authoritative style actively stimulates healthy brain development. Because these kids are allowed to practice making choices within safe boundaries, they build really high self-esteem and robust independence. They end up performing better academically, they navigate peer conflicts with empathy, and they show significantly lower rates of anxiety and depression. Basically, you are building highly resilient human beings.
Now hold on. Before you start feeling guilty about that time you lost your temper and yelled this morning, it is so crucial to remember what renowned researcher Dr. Dan Siegel notes: absolutely no parent is perfectly authoritative in every single moment. Parenting is incredibly hard. You're going to lose your temper. The real magic of this approach is that your mistakes are simply chances to reconnect, apologize, and grow alongside your child.
So as we bring this explainer to a close, I've got a challenge for you. You don't have to overhaul your entire parenting style overnight. But I want you to think about one specific script you can change today. Can you swap a demand for a question? Can you try offering 2 yeses after a no? Small, deliberate shifts toward that kind and firm sweet spot are really all it takes to guide your child toward a healthier, much happier future. So what's the one change you're going to make today to totally transform your family's dynamic?